Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. You can find us on the radio at icradio.media, where we are now Fox News affiliates. And thank you so much, Dave, for making that happen. Absolutely. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications and Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire, and the Newscasters Studio, thenewscasters.com, where you'll find all kinds of like-minded folks who really think with this up here, and they do a lot of research with all the people they interview, and even if they're talking themselves, I mean, you're going to hear the truth out of these folks. As a matter of fact, Don Brown, he's an attorney, he's also a writer, a author, a speaker. He does all kinds of great things. And Don, you need to have your own podcast on the Newscasters.
I wouldn't know where to start, but like I've got a lot of spare time, but I'll leave that to you for the time being, because you're doing a great job for both of us, Donna.
Oh, well, thank you so. Thanks, friend. I definitely appreciate you saying that. Well, I mean, I don't have to work at anything. I mean, it all just kind of falls into my lap. So, I mean, I really don't have to do a lot of research. But then we got breaking news about Hunter Biden.
We did.
And yeah, well, what do you think?
Well, first off, I am pleasantly surprised, I've got to say. But you got to remember a couple of things. Number one, there was a very clear-cut criminal charge here, and that was putting false information on a federal ATF form. By contrast, the charges that we're seeing against these political cases brought by the Democrats, like against President Trump in New York, there's no specific charge. All he did was sign 34 checks to his lawyer. Or take these prosecutions where they're prosecuting Trump electors. There's no statute in any of the 5 states saying it's illegal to submit an alternate elective slate. The Democrats just make that up. Here, there was a very, very straightforward charge. And the other thing I think is important to remember are 2 things. Number one, Democrats did not really want to bring this case against Hunter, but they were forced to, in part because of 2 very brave IRS whistleblowers, Gary Shapley, I believe, and a guy named Joe Ziegler, who were testifying, came before the Congress and said, hey, the IRS is trying to give Hunter a very, very sweet deal. And if you'll remember, it was just about a year ago, in July of last year, they were cooking up this plea scheme they brought before this judge, Marianne Norica. And if you remember, the deal was that Hunter would plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges. Then they were going to give him what they call a deferral on the gun charges. And if he kept his nose clean, number one, he would do 0 time at all. But even bigger, it appeared that they had this deferral set so that the government could not prosecute him for anything that was under investigation at that point, including some felony tax issues that were under investigation stemming from Hunter making millions from offshore deals in China and in Ukraine, etc. So they try to pull a fast one over on this judge, this Trump appointee, I'm glad to say, who blew the whole thing up. And she questioned the prosecutors and refused to accept that deal because it was so unusual and so one-sided, obviously trying to protect Hunter. And because that deal blew up, this case came back alone as a standalone gun charge case. And he's facing a number of felony and misdemeanor tax charges that will be coming up in September on a separate case. But the Democrats did not want to prosecute Hunter. They would not have prosecuted him if it weren't for these IRS whistleblowers. They tried to give him a sweetheart deal. The Trump judge blew it up. And, I was interviewed in another network the other day, and I said I wasn't optimistic that there will be a guilty verdict because of this is in Biden's backyard. But it is a very simple case. He falsified ATF form 4471, excuse me, I believe. And anyway, he said, I don't use illegal or drugs, and I'm not addicted. And he kind of sunk his own self in some ways, because of the audiobook, they played the audiobook, and he talked about how long he'd been addicted to cocaine and how often he had to have it. He sunk himself. So it's a good day. I'll take it for the justice system. It doesn't clean up all these political prosecutions that we're seeing on the other side. But hey, it's a good day where justice was served. He is facing up to 25 years. Probably won't serve any time on this this time. But the the felony tax charges, which have to do, with him making money in China and Ukraine and not reporting it. Those are coming up, and maybe we'll be back and talk about those when that case gets closer to trial. But it's an interesting time, and it's a pretty good day, I would say.
It's pretty interesting. I think Jill presumed if she walks in with him holding his little hand like he's a 5-year-old, that, the judge may have mercy on him. It's the same tactics it's just like, I can't believe it. It's the same playbook over and over again.
Right.
I don't know. My son would say, "Mom, stop holding my hand." It was just, it was unreal.
Right. Well, you had that, and they tried everything, and they tried. It's interesting. This lawyer of his, Abby Lowell, he tried this. Man, he tried to stretch it, saying, "Well, because Hunter had been to a rehab facility a couple of months back, he's no longer an addict and no longer a user. Give me a break." I've never struggled with addiction, but I've struggled with a lot of things. So I'm not condemning people who have struggled with addiction, but if you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, you stand up and say, hello, I am, whoever, and I'm an alcoholic. And you understand that addiction is something that's never defeated. You certainly aren't going to take years and years and years and years of cocaine abuse, use, and addiction, and then claim because he went to a rehab, he's no longer addicted. And fortunately, the jury didn't buy that one. Although I am somewhat surprised because they were playing ball in Biden's backyard. And they tried the whole thing with Dr. Jill. By the way, did you hear that she had gone to France and then flew back to Wilmington, Delaware on your taxpayers' dime, Donna, on an Air Force jet?
That upsets.
Flew back to France for the Normandy ceremonies there, all at taxpayer expense, to take care of something that is essentially personal. And that's not getting much play in the liberal media, but it just shows to what extent they think they own our money and will go for something that's just clearly a personal expense and has nothing to do with advancing the affairs of state by having this woman go and sit there for a few days, during jury selection of all things.
Well, I find it interesting because if I were still employed with GTE like I was back in the heyday of cell phones, I couldn't have done that. My boss would have fired me and said, "No, you're not going to go on our dime. That's a personal thing." I'm pretty sure Ed would have said that. So anyway, I can't believe it. And for the folks out there who are okay with this, I don't know. There's still quite a few.
Well, you got folks out there that are okay with child mutilation. And not to switch the topic too much, I don't know if you saw this week, Biden's DOJ indicted a medical doctor in Houston, Texas, for blowing the whistle on child mutilation practices at the Texas Children's Hospital in Houston after the state of Texas made it illegal, passed a law to make it a felony. They kept doing it. This doctor blows the whistle on child mutilation in a hospital, and Biden's DOJ goes after that guy. And so, everything they do is counter to what we've learned as being basic in terms of human decency and common sense. But they are out of touch. They are inside a bubble inside of Washington and New York. They don't think they have to play by the rules. And today they got a little bit of pushback. Now Biden says he's not going to pardon Hunter. I believe that is. You believe that when I'll say a little bit of tropical beachfront property in Alaska.
I'll do the same. I have a bridge in London. I'd sell you.
All that, exactly. I'll swap your bridge. You can swap your bridge for my beachfront property in Alaska on the Aleutians. How's that sound?
I don't know. It's just weird. It's just a weird thing. So, did you hear the speech from Biden yesterday? He sounded like as if he were drunk. Was he drunk with too much B12? And what do you think it was? And
well, I did see part of that, and it's going to be interesting with this debate coming up. And I'm sure they're going to try to probably jab him with steroids, do everything they can do to keep him on his feet. I don't know what happened. I don't know if you saw something very strange happen when he was standing there on the podium with Emmanuel Macron. He bent over and stood there bending over for a number of seconds, and then Dr. Joe had to whisk him off. So, you could figure out what may or may not have happened there. But clearly, having this clown sitting in the Oval Office is a danger to national security. But it shows how far that the communists will go in order to maintain power, to put a clown like this in office. I saw a cartoon the other day said, yeah, this lady was looking like June Cleaver saying, yes, I believe that Biden got 81 million votes. I just don't believe he had 81 million voters, and
that's a good one. That's real good. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting. We're coming up here in just a few days on this first, early presidential debate, which is the earliest in history. Vivek, who neither one of us are supporting for vice president, who doesn't have a snowbird's chance, and of getting there, did make an interesting observation. Is this a trial run, to determine whether or not they're going to try to kick him off the ballot? Because if he totally falls apart, which is possible, a couple of things are possible. He's been able to get through State of the Union, without fumbling too much. Of course, he's got a teleprompter, which he can read. He'll read where it says to pause. He'll read the cues. But is he going to be able to stand there long enough and to look lucid enough for a long enough time, to get through the test? I think there may be something in what Vivek's saying, that this debate coming up is kind of a test of that regard. If he totally disintegrates, it's going to give his opponents within the party more ammunition to try to get him off the ballot. But you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions. This is a predicament that Democrats have created for themselves.
They did it.
Yep, and getting them off the ballot is going to be easier said than done. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds in a couple of weeks as well.
Well, I've got to say something to you. First of all, I do have an issue. I have a problem, and I need to go to rehab for it. I'm telling the whole world about this.
Right.
I'm addicted to Snickers bars, and I do need help. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to place a bet with you. I'm going to say the debate doesn't even happen.
Okay, you got it.
All right,
so I'll say it does happen.
You got to send me some Snickers bars, okay?
You got it. We'll wait.
And then I'll do rehab after the Snickers, but after
a box of Snickers. But see, Donna, you can handle the Snickers better than me. You have to send me some yogurt or something that's not quite as fattening, because you don't have to worry about it. You still got your metabolism there. So send me something a little healthier. But we'll Snickers bar or
something going. And see this Ohio State thing right here. Okay, so a friend of mine graduated at Ohio State. So when Auburn, my football team, lost to Ohio State, I wasn't going to keep this. He said, when you get on the air, you've got to use this mouse pad.
Right.
I've been loyal. I've done that. But the thing about it, the reason I keep it is I like the way it fits on my desk. Yeah. But I'm thinking about spray painting it or doing something with it.
I'm with you. I was pulling for Auburn in that game because I'm a Southern guy. But hey, as long as Ohio stays in the Republican camp, and we could see J.D. Vance on the ticket, I don't have a big dog in that fight. It's not like it was Duke of Carolina, but I was pulling for Auburn in that one. So I'll support you on that. Although it is a nice looking, a patriotic, colorful looking mouse pad, and J.D. Vance could be the guy.
Dan said he picked this one out for me because I'm so patriotic.
There you go.
Thanks, Dan.
Ohio, Script Ohio. The great Script March that Ohio. I have to give it to Ohio State band. That Script March is one of the greatest things in college football. So if your friend's living, is listening, sure, he's living. He didn't take the facts, maybe he's living, but if you're listening, hats off to the Ohio State marching band. Script Ohio is the best halftime performance in college football. So there you go.
And I'm turning into a Steelers fan.
There you go.
You know why, don't you? That coach is saying we're not going to bring any of that nonsense on my team. He said no kneeling. And no trans, none of that stuff, none of that garbage. I'm
with you.
I'm a
Steelers, and hopefully a lot of Steelers fans out there that might have voted Democrat otherwise will get the message and come on to the right side this time. So we'll see.
Absolutely. So I have to ask another question of you, because apparently I live on the other side of the tracks. And so you live in North Carolina. So apparently things are okay economically with you guys. They're apparently okay, because all we can hear from the Biden administration is how good everything is. I'm seeing a lot of folks hurting around here.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have the wrong side of tracks in North Carolina too. So I'm with you on the wrong side of the tracks. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. But all that aside, here's a guy that has a history of pervasive lying. Even before he started losing his mind, he got in trouble back in the late 70s. He was mocking. He was lifting lines from Neil Kinnock back in the day. I understand he tried to lift some of Reagan's lines when he went to Normandy the other day. And so things are just fine. Bidenomics is doing great. Price of gasoline is low. Price of bread at the food store is low. Us middle class people, we've never had it better, have we, Don? Under this. Well,
I gotta say this: he probably doesn't pump the gas in his car. Probably doesn't. But anyway, I went on ahead. I put the speech of Reagan on my Facebook page. I had to listen to it again. That's when a president is a president. I mean, you felt it's like Trump. You feel like he's a cheerleader for everybody. We've got to have that now, Don.
Right. Reagan's speech in 1984 there at Normandy, Boys of Pointe du Hoc, celebrating the 75th Rangers and what they did to scale those cliffs, was one of the greatest presidential speeches in American history. It doesn't get the publicity that it deserves, but only Reagan could deliver that the way he did. And I get goosebumps even thinking about it. It's hard to believe it's been 40 years since he was there. And I've been privileged to speak at the Reagan Library a couple of times and visit the president's grave. And I will give a little pitch for the Reagan Library, and Melissa Giller, who is the director for speakers out there, is the greatest presidential library there is. And you and I were brought up in the Reagan Revolution, and I can't speak for you. I may be able to, but I began to become a conservative right about the time that Jesse Helms and Ronald Reagan were preaching the right message, which landed at the right time. And we had a very, very weak Democrat at the time, Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter looks like a Charlton Heston compared to this clown.
Even now.
Yeah. But we're in a malaise. Carter said in 19. We were in a malaise. Like you got nothing to do with it, Jack. Well, but at least he didn't lie about it. We were in a malaise. It was a self-inflicted malaise. But this guy up here lies, so everything's fine and dandy. You're better off than you were, and he'll just keep talking and talking and talking. The problem is that nobody is buying it. I've seen more and more polls about groups that traditionally might have voted Democrat that are moving closer and closer and closer in the Republican camp. Trump is making tremendous inroads among Hispanics. Campaign for Congress recently, unfortunately, did not work out like we hoped to this time. But while I was campaigning, it's interesting because I was up in Concord at a Presbyterian church up there, and I spoke to this gentleman who works for the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles, and they register voters, at the DMV. And I said, well, how's it coming? And he told me the interesting thing has happened. He said among young black males, the large majority of them are registering Republican now. And part of that is because they identify with Trump because of the mugshot. And he had no reason to tell me that. But we are seeing inroads being made. And the question is, can we get everybody out to the polls that's swinging our way? If we can, and if we can deal with whatever it is they're going to throw at us, we don't know what that's going to be. I'm expecting something. They're not getting very far with these political prosecutions, but they're going to throw something at us. But if there's even halfway a fair fight, and the amount of cheating from 4 years ago is drastically reduced, this could very well be a landslide. Looks like Virginia may be in play for Trump, maybe even New York. When you look at a couple 100,000 people out on a beach in New Jersey, and then he fills up the Bronx, with demographics that ordinarily would not go Republican. There's something happening out there the mainstream media is terrified about, and they don't want to talk about. But I'm just laughing the whole way. So Democrats created this problem. Let's see what they're going to try next. They will try something. The question is what. So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, let me ask you a question about this. Okay, remember Hillary Clinton she was running for prez, and she passed out in the car. She goes to her daughter Chelsea's apartment, comes back looking 20 years younger. And I mean, this girl was a double, but not a good double, because she looked 20 years younger and was like, what, about 40 pounds lighter than Hillary? So anyway, and then Hillary's out there playing with kids and all this kind of stuff. So is it possible, because this is what dictators do. Dictators throughout history have had doubles. And when they're out there, they're speaking of someone who looks very much like them. You think they're going to try that and see if we will notice there is a double with this clown?
Don, I don't know if they will or won't, but as I've shared with you, that would not surprise me. There's absolutely nothing that this deep state would try to surprise me.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And we know, the CIA has been, for years has been, they've been putting, specializing in using these plastic masks that you pull over to your face and you look like somebody else. I don't know the answer to the question, but all I'm saying is that it would not surprise me. I've shared with you when I was involved in investigating and writing the book on Extortion 17, it became obvious that our government either had deliberately sacrificed 30 Americans, including 17 members of SEAL Team 6, or had let them die because of criminal negligence. One or the other. You can't. One or the other. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing that this deep state could do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing that would surprise me, including that.
No, I just would not be the least bit surprised. Okay, so let's just say something happens before the debate is when I think it'll happen. And something does happen. Who is going to be running in this? I keep saying clown for some reason. I guess because it reminds me of one. Okay, so who would be running in his place? Would it be Kamala? Now they've kind of dug a little ditch there with her. I mean, she's the first black woman and all this kind of stuff. They're going to have to tread soft on that.
Well, yeah, and as I said earlier, they've created the predicament for themselves.
Yeah.
You go to Kamala. I mean, you have a situation where the convention could theoretically nominate whoever they wanted to nominate. Then there has been some speculation that they want Newsom. That it's clear to me they want Newsom right now. But to get from point A to point B is going to be the challenge. I read an analysis that some speculate that what they may do is cut a deal with Kamala, whereby Biden resigns. She steps in as the first woman president, serves the rest of the term out, but doesn't run. And so therefore she's made history in that way. And then they can pick Newsom or whatever other radical they want to pick. That's probably where they would go. But I don't know if she'd go along with that or not. I just don't know.
Okay. I love studying on things. I'm the nerd. So I did a study, like a massive study on thugs back in the 30s and the 40s, prohibition and all this kind of stuff. Well, this is something thugs do. In the whole bunch, they're all thugs. They all belong to Chicago and Thuggeryville. What thugs do is they'll use you for a little while and they'll shoot you and get you out of the way. So let's just say Kamala really is the prez, okay? And then they're going ahead and put Newsom in. He's going to have her killed so he can be the prez. I mean, are you really safe, even if you're a Democrat?
No, I don't think so. I think they'll do whatever it takes. And remember, it's the preservation of power. Many of these Democrats at the national level, and I know they're good, solid blue dog Democrats still out there. I'm not talking about y'all, whose daddy was a Democrat, granddaddy was a Democrat, but you voted for Reagan and Trump. I'm not talking about those folks. I'm talking about the head of the party. I'm talking about the Jerry Nadlers and the AOCs and the Nancy Pelosi's and the Hakeem Jeffries and the Chuck Schumers. They will do anything. And not just that, but these names that I've called, they're the political arm of the deep state. These three-letter agencies are running everything, and they pose the greatest threat to the constitutional republic, but to simply ignore the law, do what they want to do. So, there's again, back to my original premise, there's no scenario that would surprise me or that I would put past them. 9/11, you have two towers go down. Most people don't know that a third went down. It was never touched by a plane. Blocks away from the twin towers. I mean, that type of thing. That they use bait and switch, sleight of hand, distraction. That they will use false flags, anything to distract the public way. It goes back to what the Romans said: give them bread and give them circus. You can control them. They control the circus. The media is their circus act. So if something like that were to happen, you could bet it'll be spun in some way to make it so that the fools out there who want to believe them will have talking points to chew on. True. Because a lot of people don't want to believe it. In fact, I would say most don't.
Yeah, most. Don, we're going to have to go into a commercial break, but I did want to say something else, and this is about the little Biden dude today. It reminded me of you remember the Mendez, was it Mendez or whatever, brothers who killed their parents And the attorney would come in and she kept calling them boys, even though they were grown men. It reminded me of that. I just kept thinking about that trial. That happened in the 80s, was it? And I'm looking at these and I'm like, they're not boys for good. I mean, I was grown. I mean, been through college, had a kid and all this kind of stuff by the time I was their age. They were not boys. And I'm so fed up with that. You call somebody, I don't know. I won't get on that again. Let's go ahead and go to a commercial break. We'll be right back in a few minutes, guys.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday. We begin at 1 p.m. Central Time, so we're so glad to have you as part of us. You know, you can send emails. I'll have to tell you, you thrill me when you do that. Send an email. Whatever you want me to talk about, I'll be glad to do that for you, because we have the show because of you. Donna at donnasedge.com. I have a very good friend with me right now, Don Brown. He's an attorney, an author, and a speaker. Don, let's talk about your writings and how folks can find those. Are you writing on something right now?
I'm working on a book called Kangaroo Court, and hope to have it published sometime this summer. It is an analysis of the various political prosecutions, not just the Trump prosecutions, but many others. That you may hear about them here and there. They prosecuted Rick Perry for vetoing a bill. They prosecuted Tom DeLay. They couldn't get him any other way. prosecuted the governor of Virginia. It goes into prosecutions of ordinary folks like the McCloskeys in St. Louis who were prosecuted for holding a gun. Poor Kyle Rittenhouse, who was running for his life and defended himself. You know, it's these pro-life fathers like Mark Houck and Paul Vaughn, who were prosecuted by Biden's DOJ. So we're looking at a number of political prosecutions. And I'm hoping this book is going to make a difference. If it's not on the website yet, folks can go to my website at donbrownbooks.com or look me up on Amazon. And always happy to interact with readers. This should be number 16, Lord willing. And so I'm probably about 2/3 away through the manuscript and working pretty hard on it. And the problem is I'm getting brand new material to add every day to update it. And so, you know, like you say, you've been doing this for 20 years and there's never a shortage for better or for worse, sometimes for worse, but there's never a shortage of stuff to talk about. So Kangaroo Court is a working title. And so I'm hoping that'll be coming out soon, but in the meantime, there are 15 others out there I'd invite folks to go take a look at. You can look at, you know, the Clint Lawrence book, Travesty of Justice, is one I would recommend for folks to look at. That was about the prosecution of this young lieutenant in the 82nd Airborne Division, Clint Lawrence. I was involved as a defense counsel in this case when President Trump pardoned him. I also would recommend the Extortion 17 book, which you kindly endorsed also, Donna. And there's a movie on that that's about the shoot down of the SEAL team. And those two books, I think, will give your readers an inside look about how corrupt this government can be and what we need to do in many cases to try to turn this around.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Trump for just a few minutes, but I wanted to mention one other thing. We were talking about Democrats and Reagan. And again, I'm just enthralled about that speech, and I love my mug. About that. I love that. But I'll have to say,
I love the Reagan part. I don't know about the Bush part, but the Reagan part I love. Anyway, go ahead.
I meant Reagan. What did I say? Did I say Bush?
No, you didn't say that.
I meant Reagan. No, I voted for Ross Perot when Daddy Bush and Clinton ran. I couldn't do the Daddy Bush. I wasn't into that one. But my granddad, who had been a Democrat forever, my dad's dad, and my grandmother had passed away a year before the election. So my granddad just looked at me and he said, "I'm going to do something I've never done." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going to vote Republican this time." Well, I almost fell over. And he said, "I like Reagan. I think he can bring us all back together again." And he literally did. He voted for Reagan. He just really loved him. And I think we're going to see that turn around now. I really do. More towards Trump. So what's going on in the Trump camp right now?
Well, of course, the president is dealing with the aftermath of this political prosecution in Manhattan. And you and I discussed this. The thing that's interesting to me is that some people seem shocked about it. You had all these talking head legal types, you know, come on Fox and other networks and talk about what a ridiculous case it is. And we all knew it was ridiculous. But of course, you had a Manhattan jury there, and you've got a judge who's a clown. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I read the instructions, 55 pages of instructions that the judge read to that jury. That wasn't televised. You had to read it. And 3 different times he told the jury that you don't have to be unanimous about this underlying crime. In other words, in that case, they didn't have a crime, so they made one up. What did they say the crime was? The president signed checks to his lawyer, 34, so they charged a felony count for everyone. And those checks were supposed to cause another crime, which the jury didn't have to have unanimous consent on, and you don't know what the other crime was. One said it was, one theory was it was election fraud. The other was it had to do with taxes, and the other was defrauding, whatever. But there was no clarity. So we're dealing with that at the moment. But of course, there were $200 million raised by the Trump campaign within 48 hours.
The website went down. How many times?
Right. So what we're getting into now, we're getting to this. You're a Democrat. I'm assuming you don't have many. Maybe you do. I think maybe your Democrat audience are good blue collar Democrats. So if you're a Democrat, you're responsible for this. You like this. It's one of those things. Be careful what you ask for, Democrats. Like Trump said, indict me again. Every time I Flower Blue said to get a subpoena, indict me again. I mean, it is really literally backfiring. And of course, there are a couple of Supreme Court cases that we're waiting on a decision on right now that could alter the dynamics of all this. One has to do with presidential immunity. And the argument that the Trump team has made is that, there was already presidential immunity granted in a U.S. Supreme Court case, or rather recognized, called Fitzgerald versus Nixon in 1982. Nixon had been out of office for 8 years, and this guy named Fitzgerald was kind of a whistleblower for the Air Force, and he blew the whistle about cost overruns on a jet aircraft the C4 or C5, I believe. And then he got fired. He tried to sue President Nixon, and the Supreme Court said, hey, there's immunity. You can't sue a president while in office. That was a civil case. Of course, now this is a criminal case, at least in name only. But I think that the principle applies across the board. So we're going to be watching that. And so then there's a second case before the Supreme Court right now involving J6ers that could impact all this. That case is called the Fisher case, and it has to do with the Democrats trying to use this statute about obstructing official proceedings as a way of most of the felonies in the J6 cases are under this obstruction of official proceedings statute, which came under something called the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which is a federal crimes act. But if you look at that section under obstruction of official proceedings is entitled witness tampering. It deals with witness tampering. It deals with, you can't obstruct proceedings having to do with a court. And so the trial judge agreed with Mr. Fisher, saying, I agree with you. This doesn't have Congress is not an official proceeding under the statute. The liberal D.C. Circuit overturned a trial judge. Now the Supreme Court is looking at this statute does not apply to Congress. The Democrats trying to stretch it. If the Supreme Court strikes that, and if the Supreme Court grants immunity, even partial immunity, it's going to cut a hole in a lot of what these foolish prosecutors are doing. So I'm sure the Trump camp is watching that. In the meantime, I hear he's got to go talk to a probation officer, which will be by Zoom. They're setting the sentencing hearing in that New York case is 3 days before Republican convention. It will be this Republican judge, this Democrat judge up there, Merchan, who will be foolish to try to incarcerate Trump. You never know what they're going to do, though. But it's going to be interesting to watch. If he does that, think about the money they're going to rake in after him trying to do something like that. But I think the president is having some fun with this, to tell you the truth, and he's in his element.
He is too.
Yeah.
This is what I want Trump to do. Okay, now back in my olden days, back in the elementary days, my first grade teacher read to us Burr Rabbit and Burr Fox. Mm-hmm. And remember the one part that says, throw me in that briar patch, throw me in it. And it wound up being a winner. I want Trump to get up there on the debate stage and say, throw me in that briar patch. And just smile. That's all I want him to do. And I wish he would, because every single thing, every little crazy thing they've done against him has wound up, he raises even more money. I mean, and this is another thing. So the libs get it out the next day. Oh, he got some big name donors who put in lots and lots and lots of money, but that's not true. There were people doing $5, $10, $20. It was little bitty amounts of money that was being brought in. Now that's volumes to me, Don.
If you're going to raise $200 million in a 48-hour period, you'd rather raise it from 1 million people, given $200 a piece, or 2 million people given $100 a piece, if I'm getting my math right, than 1 or 2 donors striking a big check. And that's because it shows the breadth of support. And that's largely what we're seeing, as you pointed out. And, we've seen big Democrats run for office before. Look at Michael Bloomberg, all the money you want, raising tons of money from selected number of self-funding and from a selected number of billionaires. But a billionaire class can't relate to the blue-collar working Joe and Jane out on the streets and out in the heartland of the country. So, we're going to have, I hope you'll have me on again, because we're going to have a lot of fun talking about a lot of things that are getting ready to come up.
You better believe I am.
Yeah. So it's we're going to have our hands full, Donna, and then the convention's coming up. We're going to probably figure out who the Veep nominee is going to be, and that's going to be interesting to watch too. So there's a lot of things to watch, and will there even be a Democrat convention? I've heard they're talking about maybe doing it by Zoom. They're talking about this bird flu thing. They might try bird flu as their next. There
has to be something.
Yeah, that'd be something.
Now you're from Charlotte. You live in Charlotte, so you remember this when the Democratic convention was coming in, and Barack Obama wasn't getting the crowds they thought they were going to get. It was at the Panther Stadium, and Mother's in Alabama. So Mother is calling me. I'm about to go on the air with my show, and she says, "You better take cover." And I said, "For what?" And so on the world news, they were pretending there were tornado watches and all this stuff was going on in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were living there then.
Right.
And so, and I'm telling Mother, I'm even taking pictures to prove it. She thinks I'm trying to, not make her worry. And I said, I will go outside and take pictures and send them to you. So I said,
Right.
look, those guys, it's beautiful out here. And that's when they went to the smaller, was it cricket stadium or something? They're
Right.
going to have to try something. They will lie. And I know you know this. The Panthers Stadium had been given a deposit of $1 million.
Right.
And of course, the Democrats lost our taxpayer $1 million so they could go to another venue.
Stadium, since he's 75,000, they had to move it inside the small arena. And just one minor thing, I want all my folks out there to. My office is in Charlotte. I work a lot in Charlotte, but I now live in Union County, which is God's country, and
For you.
which is part of the greater Charlotte metro area. But Union County is as red as it gets, and I'm very, very proud of my friends and fellow patriots out in Union County. But points well taken. They did try to pull a fast one over on people, trying to make folks think that it was tornadoes and storms that caused them to move the venue on the inside. The fact of the matter is, nobody wanted to come see it. So again, they'll try anything, bait and switch, sleight of hand, whatever it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so do you have any ideas? Because you're way up there. I'm just down here. So do you have any ideas on who the VP pick will be?
Well, I'm way up here, all right, but that's a good question. I had a feeling this topic might come up because we're getting closer and closer. The names that I've seen most recently are still Tim Scott's name is there. J.D. Vance seems to be moving into contention. The governor of North Dakota, Burgum's name has been there. The Elaine Stefanik in New York, the congresswoman, her name is there. But I'm thinking you're looking at, Scott still maybe Vance. People have mentioned Rubio, but I'm trying to tell folks the 12th Amendment is going to prevent that. You can't put Rubio or DeSantis on a ticket because the 12th Amendment won't allow the president and the vice president from the same state. If the Republicans take Florida, you got to pick where those delegates are going to go. You can't give them to both Trump and DeSantis or Trump and Rubio. So for people that want to keep beating that drum, it's probably a dead horse out the gate. Ben Carson's name has also been floated out.
I love Ben Carson.
I do too, and I could see that as a possibility. Here, a couple of things about Trump we know about him. Number one, he's not going to want to pick another A personality necessarily. That's just Trump. Okay, and number two, I think he's going to be very, very careful about loyalty, undivided loyalty this time. And I think with Tim Scott and with Ben Carson, those two, you get a check the blank on those two characteristics, loyalty, and not going to fill the room. J.D. Vance is probably, I could see him of those three as a more compatible successor because he's MAGA 100%. Of course, at first he was not a Trump fan, so you gotta take that into account. Trump is very, very forgiving. He is a Trump fan now for sure. I think the names that are at the top of my list are J.D. Vance, Ben Carson, and Tim Scott. I think the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, probably shot herself in the foot with the thing about killing the dog. I don't know why she would publicize that, but she did. And of course, Vivek's not going to be in it. And I understand that Tulsi Gabbard has been told she's not in it. So those are three that come to my mind as we record this show here in the middle of June. Things could change. Trump is the master of a surprise. He could pull a name out of the hat we haven't thought about, and Burgum could be a possibility as well. He's a kind of a solid guy, but I think Trump's going to do everything he can to avoid another Mike Pence type of fiasco.
Yeah. I
think Trump. I love him to death. His Achilles heel has been personnel selection, but I think he's learned a lot probably from the way he got stabbed in the back so many times by political cheeseheads that talk one way and then turn around and stab him in the back after talking one way. So those are my names. So what do you think about it, Donna? I know you're the interviewer, but I certainly am interested in your thoughts on it as well.
Well, I'll tell you who I hope it's not. I hope it's not going to be Rubio, because he's gonna screw up, and he's going to call him Little Rubio, and that doesn't.
little Mario, little Marco.
And that doesn't need to happen. But there are so many people who are already in place as governor, senator, Congress, whatever. And I think those folks need to stay as his allies. They need to be in place.
I agree.
I don't know who in the world, but I think it's going to be possibly another businessman. Someone who has never been in politics before, because he can relate to that kind of person instead of someone who has been in politics forever and a day. But I can't think of a business person it would be. I really don't think, what's his name with X? I don't think him.
Oh, Musk. No, it won't be Musk.
No, who would you think, if it's a businessman, successful businessman?
Well, there you go, because that is the $50,000 question. Who is it who could be a successful businessman who is known well enough to have at least some semblance of name recognition out of the blue? And he tried that with Rex Tillerson, who had been the chair of Exxon and all that, and Tillerson, turned out to be kind of rhino-ish.
Yeah.
So if he does pull a businessman out, I don't have any good feel for who that might be at this point. Of course, Trump is in the business world and would know, but you'd have to find somebody who is committed to MAGA and who's committed to it philosophically, and somebody who I think would be, if it's going to be somebody from the business world, my guess is it will be somebody that Trump goes back a long way with, who he has a good feel for. I can't see him taking a chance on somebody who doesn't know very, very well if he goes that route. But you don't have to worry about Marco Rubio, because the Constitution is going to block that. The only way that works, if Trump moves up here to North Carolina, we'd be glad to have you, Mr. President. You've got a nice spread up there in North Mecklenburg County on Lake Norman, so we'd be glad to have you. And we do need to win North Carolina also, but that's about the only way this is going to work, to put Rubio or DeSantis on a ticket. That just ain't going to happen. Or Byron Donalds also, by the way. I like Byron Donalds, but you can't have, again, you can't get around having the prohibition. It's not really a prohibition, but it's an impractical prohibition against the president and vice president being from the same state anymore. 12th Amendment was changed because Virginia was having, the same president and vice president from the same state early on, and they decided to change that to try to mix it up a little bit. So Byron Donalds, Marco Rubio, and Ron DeSantis are probably out for that reason.
I'll tell you somebody I'm following like crazy, and that's Kennedy from Louisiana. That guy, I love him. I just love his candor.
Well, he's by far the most fun to watch, the most entertaining member of the Congress on either side, or either the House or the Senate. And you can't pull anything over on him. He's sharp as a whip. He understands the Constitution, he understands law. He's been a judge. It's kind of fun to watch him sometimes when he'll ask some of these judicial nominees, what is stare decisis? What is res judicata? What does it mean? What does sovereign immunity mean to you? Can I sue somebody? He'll ask these basic questions that these nominees ought to know, and usually they don't. A lot of times they don't. But you can't pull anything over on him. That could be possibly a surprise pick.
I love that man. I think he would. I think they would make a dynamic team. I really do. But the country mouse and the city mouse. But I think it would be like an awesome, awesome pick.
Well, and here's the thing about it. I agree. I think it would be really interesting. And if he did that, you got a Republican governor in Louisiana now, Jeff Landry, who would make the appointment. So you'd have another Republican put into office. I don't know what Jeff Landry would do, but that would be you're not going to lose a seat in the Senate if you make that pick. So, and Louisiana is largely Republican now anyway, so that would be a safe pick, and it will be an interesting pick. I do like the guy, and he, I don't know how he polls nationally. I mean, I'm sure that the Trump team is going to look at all that, but I like the guy a lot, and I enjoy watching him every time he gets some liberal up there on the stand to kind of cross him a bit. It's a lot of fun to watch for sure.
Well, I'd like to know why you think. I mean, I love it when he does that. I'll look at Phil and go, "Get ready, he's about to get into it." I love this guy. I think he's awesome.
You got to get him on the show, Donna. You got to do that. I'm sure he would love to come on
try.
board.
Well, you've got all these people. You can help me get this guy.
Yeah, I'll call Senator Kennedy.
So,
I'll give him a call myself.
You'd be a fantastic pick.
Me for what?
For VP.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. So
You would. I mean, you're knowledgeable.
I play a little footsie with politics.
You're a conservative you would be considered from the South, even though you don't sound quite as Southern as I do, but you would be considered.
I'll tell you what, if when the president gives me a call, you will be the first interview, Donna. I promise you that.
Promise
Mr. President, when you call me to offer me a solid ticket, I'm going to put my first interview exclusive is Donna Fiesel.
Thank you.
And you can count on it.
I would be so proud of that. Absolutely. So, okay, let's talk about the third party. Let's talk about, if you want to call it that. So how is Kennedy doing at this point? I'm not hearing anything from him lately.
It's interesting because, libertarians invited off Kennedy and Trump and Biden to speak. Trump spoke and acquitted himself well. Kennedy spoke as well. Kennedy wanted the libertarian nomination because it would have put him on the ticket. He's gotten on the ticket in some states. I believe he's going to damage the Democrats far more than Trump. At one time, there's a lot of intrigue with Kennedy. Kennedy has done some good things. The best thing he's done is exposing the vax. But at the end of the day, he's kind of a wild-eyed, environmentalist. I agree with him on Ukraine, for example. He's done some good work there. But he's just too liberal on social issues and on wanting to overregulate industry and this sort of thing and wanting to socialize mess. Remember, these are also things that he supports. And Republicans, conservatives, and MAGA folks have to kind of keep that in mind. So I think he's going to pull more from Biden than anybody else. The question is how many states is he going to be on the ballot in? And I've kind of lost track of that, but he was making some progress. But his attempt to get on a libertarian ballot did not work. The libertarians have adopted some guy who's, we've had a number of libertarians say they're going to go. I've heard a number of libertarians, I know, they say, okay, I'm voting for Trump now because I don't like the guy we nominated, this guy. And enough said about that guy. But I don't think the libertarians are going to have any input. The question is, what will Bobby Kennedy do? And my belief is he's going to be an impediment to the Democrats more than anything else. I don't see him making any serious inroads with the
reason I think he won't get the MAGAs, because I'm going to tell you, none of the Republicans. The reason is because of his VP pick. This woman is as liberal as they come.
Yeah, and I've not even brought that up, but you make a great point. She is as liberal as they come. I think he picked her because she's got money she can throw into the campaign. Tulsi Gabbard said that she had been approached and she turned it down. I could believe that was happened, but she was smart to turn it down. And of course, she appears to be out of the running with Trump. Although she might have a place in the cabinet with him. I think Trump probably views her as more reliable than Nikki Haley, so she could have a place in the administration. But I don't think
Trump and Haley have kissed and made up, supposedly.
Well, yeah, each one might say that. Although I don't think you're going to see her on the ticket. So
too late. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, right. So, but where are Nikki's voters going to go? Where are you going to go? You're going to go to Biden. So, enough said.
No, that's
what few there are of them, by the way. She got creamed in her own home state in South Carolina. So, what few there are?
Yeah, if you're going to get messed up in your own home state, you have no chance. So, Vivek, I think he would be a really good press secretary. I just think he would, because at first he's young and he's a little bit on the smart aleck side, and I think he's going to need to be. For that position. I can say not as good as Sarah Huckabee. I loved her. She was good.
She was the best I've seen in many, many years. But you're the first that I've heard mention him as a possible press secretary. And now I think of it, I think he'd be ideal. I think he would be. And
he's quick-witted. So he would be able to think really, really quick. Like if somebody threw a stupid question at him, he'd stupid it back.
He's very gifted. He's clearly the most quick-witted of Trump's opponents. There's not even a close second. And he's part of the issue with Vivek. What are two issues? It's him doing number one. Number two, he's young and we don't know his track record of conservatism is very short.
Yeah.
I want to see it test a little bit more over time. But if you put him in there as a press secretary, you know, I mean,
Okay,
he would
there,
be-
harmless.
yeah, they can, you know, maybe after the convention, Trump asked him to become spokesman for the campaign, or one of the spokesmen for the campaign, and he will be outstanding for sure.
Mhm. Anybody else you can think who was on the debate stage that Trump could pick as part of the cabinet?
You mean that on the debate the
Yeah, on the
debate stage?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a call coming in.
Okay,
Anyway.
let's pick this up next time because I know this is an important call. So you go ahead and take that call, and then I'll
Yep.
finish up. I'll wrap this show up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Donna. I
so much,
appreciate
John, for being on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Appreciate you very much. God bless. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Okay, that was Don Brown. He is a teacher and an attorney, and it's always such a great thing to have him on the show with us. I wanted to talk to you guys about voting. Voting is extremely important. Now, I only want you to vote if you're going to do research. Okay, so if you haven't done the necessary research and in order to pick a candidate, don't go there. However, this is what you can do. Go ahead and start your research now. It's not too late. Not what I say, not what anybody else says. You do your own. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about, don't even get on Fox News. Okay. And most certainly don't go to CNN or any of those. But there are so many easy ways that you can go in and find out about different things about a candidate. Now, we are in this world now where people are, sound bites. So make sure it's not a sound bite you're doing research on. Make sure that this is like an entire, say, 30 minutes of something. I'll give you an idea. So I had heard a lot of folks on the Republican side talk about Joe Biden. I really didn't know that much about him when he and Trump were running first time. And so I saw sound bites where he was saying that he was top of his class. He actually had 2 degrees and, top of the class and all those things. So, and I'm thinking, well, it's a Republican saying, and I'm going to listen to it, but I still want to do more research about that. So what I did is I went to youtube.com and I found an entire 30-minute script. And this was actually him talking, not a soundbite, nothing like that. He was talking throughout the whole thing. So he was with a group of people, and he actually said in this video that he had 2 degrees and he finished at the top of his class. Then I did another research. I thought, well, I'm going to see, was he at the top of his class? Because I don't remember seeing anything about that. So I did some more research, and he was not at the top of his class. He was actually at the bottom of his class. I mean, I probably wouldn't have voted Democrat anyway. But anyway, you need to do that. You need to look at both candidates and do total research on those. Okay, that's the only way you're going to find out the truth. Don't listen to what your Uncle Joe or Aunt Sally says. I mean, you do your own research. And, if you've never voted before, you need to find the logistics of how to get this done. You've got to be registered. Make sure you get that done. Got to have a photo ID of yourself. And if you find that on voting day that you can't vote, you can do it by mail. As a matter of fact, Phil and I will be on a trip on voting day. So we've already put in our instruction. You can go to your state's website on voting. And so I did that, and I went on ahead and typed in our information and why we can't be to vote in person. So again, we're going to be voting by mail. So you've got plenty of time to do that right now, but hurry up with it because time does fly by. I mean, it really does. And I wanted to say this about you young folks. I was very impressed. I worked the polls and in the town that I live in. And because my grandmother used to do that. And so I was impressed to see all the young people come in voting for the first time. They were coming in with their parents, and it was a serious thing. And so, I mean, I'm just going to tell you, I think a lot of you young folks, you got it going on. Just don't do the soundbite thing. Okay. That's where we all mess up. Thank you so much for watching Donna's Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment and your brand new Fox affiliate. You can find us on television, Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. And I want to thank my friend Don Brown for being on the show with us again today. And thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Hope you have a super duper awesome, blessed day today.